As a-
Well, it was you who was on top of it today, so thank you. Okay, hey Brennan, welcome. So we're just kicking off with some things that people had questions on. So if you are Jim S and you happen to be here, let us know so we can cover your question. So I'm actually going to reach out to you first, Josh, because I think you had a couple of things that you were needing help with. So let me know if you still do. One of them was, I know you were talking to Mark about it, but it was loading answers to a question in a randomized order while retaining the correct flows tied to each element. Were you still needing help to walk through that?
Yes.
Okay.
And I know if it's more appropriate for Mark to talk, but I don't mind tabling that until a follow-up if Mark wanted to do it, because he seemed to have a strong idea on how to do it, but we could certainly take a stab here.
Okay. And didn't you have something else with data?
I have a couple other ones, more probably just like a question than it is anything we have to work through. So yes, it's the quick answer. So real quick with Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager requires putting something at the top of right underneath the body tag. I don't know how to do that. I know how to put the header tags across all the root pages, but I don't know how to automatically put something in underneath the body tag. Maybe that's simpler than I realized, but I don't know the best way to do that.
Do you know if it has script tags in it or not?
Yes, I think it has 2 script tags in it.
I think so. Like normally you can just paste any code into a text paragraph element. And like I usually switch it from a P to a div, but you don't even have to. So that'll just accept code and you could do an embed, but it won't accept scripts like that. So it might be something where you have to do.
It says, actually, it's no script. It says no script. It's just no script, iframe, source.
Just the no script part goes in it gets pasted. Because then, yeah, you can paste that right into a text paragraph element. You just have to paste it into the properties like display text. You can't paste it onto the page or all the code will show up. But on the right-hand side in the properties, you can do display text.
It's this right here. So that sounds like.
So that top part doesn't need to get pasted in there?
The top part is supposed to live in the header.
Perfect. All right. Yep.
So it's just that's the only part that's supposed to live right after the body, start of the body.
Yeah. So yeah, you can just copy it or cut it out of there. And then we can put it right in element real quick. It's pretty quick.
All of it or just
you can do all of it if you want. The top and bottom things are just comments. It'll work. That'll be fine.
And so then just moving forward, I just have to actually do this on every page.
You could do it if you want to make it easier. You can put it on its own page and then use a component on each page. Okay. Something like that.
I use a header.
So if you use a header, yeah, put it on the header page. Yep.
Okay, actually, this is a great talking point. Drew, can you talk a little bit about the power of using a component for headers so that if you make changes, they kind of carry across?
Yeah, I mean, I think for like every site I make, but probably almost every site everyone makes, there's like a consistent header or some kind of a menu. So if you do it in a component, you update it just that one component page and it gets updated everywhere. But also in situations like this, it's advantageous because you can insert that script and then it gets automatically put on every page, stuff like that. So I use it for a lot of things like setting different states and running things on all different pages. I take advantage of having like a header component always.
Awesome. If y'all have any questions on that, definitely chat and we can go into more detail.
So
yeah, I wasn't totally paying attention exactly what you're doing, but you got that in there in display text.
So I have it. Yeah, I started as like add text, and then I switched it to a tag name of div, and it's right there. It looks like it's adding space above the rest of the header though, which I guess I just removed that maybe.
Yeah, and it might not in real life. Let's check it in a live preview and see if it adds it because it shouldn't add anything. But we'll see. Can you tell if it's adding space up there?
This is actually probably a good question too, because I haven't, because like I have a different, header for a authorized versus a non-authorized. I actually have two header files, which I don't think is the right way to do it, but I couldn't think of it. That's just how I did it.
That's a fine. It's one way to do it for sure. I mean, that's fine. Like I would do it in the same header and use a set state action and switch a bunch of stuff around sometimes, but having two separate ones is fine.
Okay, and yeah, it does. This is where I just put it. It should sit right there, so that doesn't look like it's adding anything at the top there.
All right, cool.
Cool.
And then, yeah, if you want to view the source and make sure it's actually in there, it should be.
Okay, let me just add this here real quick. And I'm really bad about viewing source code.
So I see body, so it's going to be under body, and then I guess in header, you're probably right around it. It's hard to tell because it's not going to have. Well, I guess we'll just see that code. It's probably that one that says, yeah, it's probably that one that you're on right now.
Div class CSS.
You drop that open with the little arrow. Yep, there it is.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. That's super helpful.
Yeah, we're gonna do an element at some point that accepts code, but really all it's gonna be is exactly what you just did. We're just gonna copy it and give it a new name called like code because it's confusing.
All it's doing is
You put
adding
any code in that way.
it's just adding an, I guess, not an argument or whatever this is. It's just adding something here when I start with the text, right?
Yeah, the display text will put anything in between two tags, and so in this case, you just add more code and it works.
Very cool. Okay. Awesome. That's helpful for
Okay.
this and a variety of things.
Was there something else, Josh?
Yeah, I think the other thing is more about general, like optimizing page structures for speed, like load speeds. In particular, what I have on a lot of these pages is, let me show this one in particular. I have, this is like a home page of like resources. And then each one of these has a component attached to it with a grid list of like a lot of data in the grid list. And even each of the things that show up in the grid list have grid lists inside of them. So it doesn't load that fast because it's calling it, like there's probably literally over 100 things like coming in via one way or another through all those different elements. And so I'm wondering what the best way to really structure these pages are to try and keep speed as best as it can. Just from like an SEO perspective, I don't want to slow the site down like really, really badly. I get one idea I have like is like just having one component instead of all of them, and then just have the action trigger loading a page into the component instead of having them all there and they're just hidden and displayed based off different times. But in general, I guess if you could speak to, if that's a good idea, that sounds like it is, but in general, just speaking to what I should do there would be helpful.
Yeah, you can do, it's up like your choice how you do it. That's one good way would be to have a single container and open in. But you can also, if you keep the containers you have there, but don't set them originally, and then when someone clicks the button, open it into that container, you can do that too. Be like
Okay.
similar thing, but a little different. But I think either way, the point would be to try to not load those in the beginning and load those like on demand when they're needed. So it's just a matter of opening a page into container, like at some point triggered by the user.
Gosh,
Dorian,
that makes sense.
do you
Not a-
have some more feedback?
Yeah, I just had a question. Like this page here, is this like an actual landing page? Like, is it a root page? Or is this a page to access through another page or another link?
Generally, the home page of this is going to be a page I actually haven't created yet. But then if they click into from the header, you can see I'm starting the drop down design here, but there'll be like a masterclass header. They'll drop down to a specific part of this page. But this is kind of like, if I'm trying to look at everything, this will be the page that they hit.
Gotcha. Yeah, the reason I was asking is because you also have the ability to pre-cache a page or a set of pages. So like before you take the user to this page, you can pre-cache all the pages on the previous step. That way, by the time they get here, it's already in the cache.
It's already local. Okay.
Mhm.
How would I do that?
There's an action. I think it's called pre-cache page or something like that.
Page. You would run it like on I like say that your homepage is before they get to this page. After everything loads on your homepage, you just run pre-cache library authenticated. And like,
Okay.
so it'll pre-cache it so that when they go to it, if they go to it, it's already in cache.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
The action is
That's-
called pre-cache page.
All right. That makes a lot of sense. And so again, I guess best case scenario, something I could just put in like the header component to.
Yeah, you could. As long as it's okay to load it on every page then, which might be fine. It might make sense. If it's already cached, I assume it doesn't like do anything again. It probably just uses it.
Correct. Yeah. It just uses what's already there.
So yeah, that's probably fine to put on header.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. That is really helpful because I was like, I know I'm loading too much going on, which is what's causing it to go slow. And so this is really helpful. That hits everything I had besides the quiz question stuff. And again, like maybe we table that if there's time at the end. If not, I'm happy to wait. And Mark was like, this would be a fun thing to tackle on office hours. So I think we can just wait for that too.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll keep going, but if we have time and that way, if it's something that'll help you keep running, we can definitely chat about it.
Perfect.
Cool. That in itself is such an interesting subject, is like how to make things load faster because it's different depending on what you're doing and what your structure is. So I'm glad that you guys offered pre-cache or just loading it,
On demand.
calling those different grids on demand. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, and we
Excellent.
already have plans for later down the road where we're going to be optimizing all these pages so that they're more static or as close to static as they can. So all that will bring speed improvements whenever we get that released as well.
Yeah. Is that both in the studio and for the executing projects, Dorian?
Mhm.
Okay, nice. Okay, cool. All right. So do we happen to have Bam Bam in here today? I love that name. No? Okay, well, let's talk about his question anyway, in case he watches the replay. So Bam Bam was asking in the office hour thread, how does the Bildr team envision people testing their applications, websites, whatever else they come up with within or externally from the Bildr platform? And I would love to get both perspectives from Dorian and Drew, because I'm sure you guys test things differently. I think this is probably a bigger question. And then Chem has some questions. Yeah, you can ask it in the chat box, or I'll just call on you after we get through Bam Bam's question, Chem. So yeah, I think it's good, just a general quick discussion, because I think y'all probably have different methods of handling this. And then I can probably speak to how we manage stuff in Bildr. So testing through applications and websites. So let's go with Dorian first. When you build something out, how do you in Bildr test through your build?
Like honestly, I usually don't.
No, Dorian, that's not helpful.
Yeah, because usually I'm building for Bildr, and on the Bildr side, we have a whole team behind that, right? But usually when I build stuff, I think because I've done it for so many years, I just run through the whole thing and then get ready. Sometimes if I have time, I'll go through it and click around and make sure, everything is good. But yeah, my workload, Cora. So
I know. I'm the one who tests Dorian stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, fine, Dorian. That wasn't.
Yeah, I think I'm the worst person for that one.
Okay, Drew, for your personal projects, how do you run through testing them in Bildr? What are some of your favorite tips and tricks?
Well, there's like two things with testing. The one is automated testing. So if that's what this question is about, I don't ever do any automated testing in Bildr. And like, I think maybe Junix or someone, or maybe it was Web3 DevDoc, someone was starting to do some unit testing, or was talking about unit testing, which there's probably ways to do in Bildr, but I don't do any of that personally, which I find like I don't really have to. I mean, I don't work on huge client projects, I guess, except the Bildr Studio. But maybe like you should talk about testing with that, because we do extensive testing. It's just not automated. But for regular testing, it's like you put, what I would do anyway is I have a test environment. And so when this code is stable, I put out that test environment and just run through everything. And like really, as I'm building, I'm running through everything a million times anyway. That's like, I feel like that's like the true way to test, because then you find all the edge cases. But more like proper coding would be automated unit testing, which we don't do. And there's no automatic way to do it in Bildr, unfortunately.
Okay, so you'd have to build something to do it.
Yeah.
Cool, which would be an awesome plugin. Which would be an awesome plugin to do. So yeah, I guess I can quickly talk about, just because I do a lot of the testing, like what my methods are and how I see it would be helpful for other people to test, is to have different environments. Okay, every project comes with dev, which is your working version that you're working on in the studio, test, and production. So publish to your test environment, get to a good solid spot where you finished out a piece of functionality, publish to your test environment, and then run through it as an end user would, right? So sign up with your email address. If you just have one email address, what I do is I'll sign up as a user, I'll run through testing. And then when I'm done, I go back into the users list and I delete that user so I can sign up and use it again for testing. So go test the actual pieces, always the most commonly used pieces, right? So it's always how someone first comes into your project. If a big part of your project is creating data, always run through that. So I like to create testing scripts on what are the main pieces of functionality. And then I just run through those processes. If I find an issue, then I will go write that up. We use cycles, which anyone can use, I think, for free. Is there a wait list for that, or can people just start? No, people can start using it actually. Yeah. I use cycles to manage our tasks in Bildr. And so if I find a bug or something's not working, I've got everything categorized. There's actions, there's elements, there's studio, there's data listeners, URL routes. If I find any bugs in there, I go create a task, I categorize it, and then usually pass it on to the guys to fix, right? And then so I guess in my case, it's a combination of two things, right? Is you got to have something externally that manages those issues that you find from your testing, right? And then usually statuses that go along with it. So in our case, it's like the thing gets fixed, then it goes ready for test, and then someone on our team tests it. If it's good, then it goes ready for test release, meaning that whenever we get to a solid spot, we then publish to the Bildr test environment, and then do the same thing all over again, test there, and then kind of goes to the same back and forth until everything is super stable, and then it gets released out into production, right? You publish to production. So that probably is my recommendation, is just have a method, right? And then keep track of those things. You could even do it in a notepad. And then as far as like testing in your own projects, use the preview. Okay, you don't, always test there first. That's the easiest thing. It's a live executing version. You don't even have to publish. Go run through your stuff there and use the debug. I can chat out a link to, I think we had like a specific session where we went through deployments and testing and our favorite hacks for that, and how you can look up certain things in the developer tools of whatever browser you're using. So I'll share some of those because that can be really helpful. So I think that's probably, so test your UI in the preview, and then have like an actual test environment where it's running and you can test through it. That's exactly what a user would see anyway. And then kind of go back and forth until you're done. Let's see. And then Josh, it looks like you mentioned you also have a testing process for your company. Do you want to share? Maybe that'd be some good for other people to hear as well.
Yeah, grain of salt, like for what it's worth, we have about 40 employees now. So we actually have we hired a full-time QA person like 6 months ago. But whether or not you have those resources or not, I think the biggest thing was just really consistent, like having our process doc written for like every page's functionality, like, and even like using a really good framework of what the demands for the project were before you started development, and then having something that you physically have to check off that worked all the way through, and then going through that, and then also I think, like you said, like checking the records as they get created and everything is appropriate there. I could probably get someone on our team that could help even better than that, but the biggest thing was just having visual check boxes that you had to hit along the way as approved, because if that wasn't there, it was too easy to miss stuff, I feel like.
Yeah. And I always say, like, just touch every single button, but sometimes, if you've got a checkbox for something that's part of a process, there's other things that are dependent on it. If that things works, the things that are dependent on it also worked. So it's not necessarily to do that. So you can kind of like figure it out, but I think it just takes a little bit of planning. So let me see if there's any more feedback on that. Yes, Web3 dev doc, master of the plugins. He's talking about JavaScript unit testing interface. Okay, and then Fraser also has a recommendation there. Okay, and then if I find a tutorial, I'll let you know on that, Zach. All right, so why don't we go ahead and just jump to the questions for the people who are in the call, and then we can always answer what else is left. So let's see, Samuel. Actually, Chem was first. So Chem, do you want to unmute and chat us what your questions are?
Yep, thank you. So I'm working on a landing page for my company to test to test an idea, and so I use the existing pattern, the landing page pattern. I think that's what it is, within Bildr, and so that was a great start. My question is, for API calls, you have a success flow and a failure flow. But if you wanted to just save data to the data store, there's an action to just, I'm sorry, that's the correct term. I'm still new to this. An action to kind of just save it to the data store. There is no success or failure. So am I to assume that it never fails to save something to the data store once you have that configured correctly?
Technically, it could fail, but like, yeah, it's not the same. It's instant basically, whereas an API call is not instant. So we just built that into the API call action because there could be a lag while it goes out and gets data, and you want to like make sure you have the data back before you run the next thing. When you call like a set element or a set data or anything, there is a little wait, don't wait after the action, or in between two actions, they'll say wait, don't wait. If you hit wait, the next action will wait until that data is 100% set. But it's so fast that it doesn't need to be like a separate flow chain together. That's the only reason it's not there. But like we could make an element or an action that actually does that and waits specifically and sets the next one. It's just not necessary. Okay, that makes sense. And so what I could do is, for my scenario, is basically connect to, like, let's say I wanted to put an email, to send an email to like one of those email sign up. Let's use MailerLite. So I probably just use that API call. When I get a success response back, then that's when I save to the Bildr data store, and then that could probably solve that. The other thing too, so I'm using like a personal account right now, and I'm going to create like a corporate account, or in other words, a different account than mine, which has a corporate card attached to it. So all the work that I'm doing right now in my personal account is the best way to just create a pattern, and then when I create another account, just pull that pattern in, or do I have to start over again, which I'd prefer not to do.
Oh, that's too much work.
You can definitely bring in the pattern if you want to. An easier method is you can actually transfer the ownership of the project to the other account. So either method would work here.
Okay, so I have multiple projects in there. I can just transfer that one project to the other account.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if you don't want to transfer the ownership, you can just add the other account as a collaborator, and they'll have equal
No,
rights.
so I want to keep my personal stuff separate from my company stuff.
Then
So,
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
and so the way that you'll do that is you'll first start by, well, obviously go create that other account, right? Then add that person as a collaborator on that project. And then in the collaborators list next to, after you've added them, the 3-dot menu, you'll click that, and then you'll see an option for make owner. Okay, then you select that, it'll make that other person the owner. And then what you'll do is you'll go log in as the company. You'll go into that project and then into the collaborators list, and then you'll click the 3-dot menu to the right of your personal user, and then you'll change it to make collaborator.
Okay.
Or remove if you want to remove it.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah,
will-
yeah. If you want to remove it entirely, you can.
Yep. I will probably do that. The other question I have, and you may not have an answer for this, but hosting prices. I noticed that that's not available yet. And one thing with dealing with corporate accounts payable people, they like to have some idea about what's going to happen. So if you don't, that's fine. But you know, if you have some sort of idea, that would be also great. Anything on that?
I don't think we know like official pricing. We like talk about a lot of different things, but one thing we know is the package. If you're paying for a package, whether it's a $9 a month one or the $29, that'll include like some level of hosting. So you probably won't ever have to pay hosting, honestly. But we don't know for sure, so we can't say for sure. But it's like our goal is to make it so you can have a certain number of projects without paying for hosting, and then only if a project got really popular and used a lot of resources, that's when we have to pay more for hosting. Then we would just pass those charges on. But like it won't be, I mean, unless we completely change everything, we're headed in a direction where it won't be like each project you have to pay for individually for the amount of hosting to, it'll be some entry level thing where you just get a base amount across all your projects and it comes with that paid account. So yeah, I mean, if they need to know more detail, Mark would definitely be the one to talk to on that rather than any of us, I think. But he would talk to somebody on the team or tell them, more information if they need to know more probably. But I don't think we really know yet because we've been in beta this whole time that we've been out, and while we're in beta, we're not going to charge for hosting. Okay.
Any idea about when APIs will be available to consume? Like, I think, yeah.
For the internal Bildr data?
Yeah.
I don't have any real idea. Dorian, I don't know if you have more info on that. It's in progress technically, but it's just like we've prioritized so many different things. I really don't know.
Yeah, like the core is there. We just have to go finish it. It's a few more additions to the UI and exposing all that. But I don't know
Chem,
what
can
the
you
priority is.
put that in feature requests? Here's the thing, y'all, is if people are saying, hey, I need this, hey, I need this, guess what's going to happen? It's going to get done. So, there's a whole lot of feature requests all the time, and we just kind of go based off of what's going to move it forward for everyone the most. So if this is something that's really going to make a difference for you in your builds, ask us about it and don't stop. Because the more that I hear it, the more I'm going to be like, hey, someone else asked about APIs again.
Okay.
Bump it up.
2 more quick questions. One, if you export your code, does it also export like your HTTP request? So let's say I created an app and it's not using like the Bildr data store, but it's using like, let's say Zanoa or some other data store, some other API. If you export it and host it on a separate place besides Bildr, does it still maintain those like AJAX requests, or do you lose them, or is it just straight up HTML and CSS that gets exported?
Yeah, right now I believe it's just the HTML and CSS. Like technically you can go into your projects and go into like the action types and functions and grab that anyways. But it's not like a one-click button that's gonna grab everything. It's a manual go find and move over.
Okay. And my last question right now is, would you say that Bildr is best used for like purely web applications, or are there other scenarios that would be a good fit? Because what I'm trying to do is with this landing page, it's sort of an experiment, proof of concept to kind of prove out that a quote unquote no code, low code tool can achieve a whole lot. And you have developers on you know, I'm a developer myself, so I get it where you know, sometimes there's a little bit of hesitancy to try to use a tool that you're not writing code in. So I'm curious about, you know, like what are some good use cases, scenarios, best use cases, or best practices, not really best practices, but good use cases for Bildr. And if you have like information elsewhere, you don't have to repeat it again. I'll be happy to go look it up.
I don't know if we have great info on that really, but I mean, I think the use cases that we say would be web apps and then Chrome extensions. So like for internal tools, especially like at a company, Chrome extensions could be pretty big. And then other like general internal tools. So just apps, you know, within the company that aren't public facing. Those are kind of the three use cases. But the thing is, it's like anything that you can code, you can make in Bildr. So really anything works. Like if I were going to make a website, I would do it in Bildr because I'm so familiar with it. That's like Bildr doesn't have enormous strengths over others in just a static website category. Whereas like in web apps, it does have a lot of advantages. But, you know, really anything that normally you would code, at least for me at this point, like, because I've been a developer my whole like career, it's like everything that I previously would have coded in all the different, whether it's something little for myself, whether it's an extension that, you know, I just spin up real quick, or like client work or Bildr, everything for me has turned to Bildr. Like I just use, it's just like if I think of it as like, if I want to write code, I would just use Bildr instead. I would use Bildr to write that code, basically. I don't know if that answers your question, but like it can do anything in a faster way. It's a matter of like, if you're at a company, it's like getting the developers on board. But if they get on board, because our community, we have a lot of developers. It's like some developers shut off to it. They don't want to hear it because it's no code, low code, but the developers that open up to it latch on and pick it up really fast, and including myself seem to love it.
I think probably the most important thing to communicate to them, Chem, would be the fact that everything is extensible. There is a place for developers in Bildr in any project that you're doing. Because all of the action types, all of the functions, all of the element types, all of that you can create your own, you can duplicate them, you can change them, etc. So if there's something that, like, I mean, Web3 Dev Doc, Zach does it. Jeroen with who built an actual marketplace does it. There have been times that some other builders have asked for something and we have not created an element or an action type or something for it, and he will go make it and add it into the marketplace. And then the person who doesn't know code, who's using just visual development to build, will go grab that thing and use it. So there's always a place, and it's always extensible, and you're not locked in. And I think that's probably the most important thing to a lot of developers is knowing that they're not just using something that's low code and is going to limit them. There are no limitations when it comes to that aspect of it.
Well, thank you for answering my questions.
Mm-hmm. And then I think there's been some games that have been, you know, if you're looking for actual like examples, people have made some games in Bildr. Web3 Dev Doc made a plugin for connecting with smart contracts for Web3 stuff. You know, Jeroen made an actual marketplace that changes and like you can access from within the studio. Drew mentioned internal tools, so you could build a visual development tool if you want to. Bildr is built with Bildr, so I mean, if that gives you any idea of like what you can make, that's probably the best example that I'd give. But awesome. Great questions, Chem. Are you in the Discord?
I am.
Okay, cool. All right. Anything else follow up? And I can send you some examples of like showcases and stuff like that, of apps that people have made, if that will help share with your team.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right. So Samuel, I think you had some questions as well. Are you still on the call?
Yeah, I'm on the call. Hi, Cora.
Hey.
Yeah, um, I've been trying to learn more about my own code process, like try and make my skill better. And I've been doing weekend builds recently. I think I launched a Shopify like team landing page last weekend. So this weekend I want to work around with Web3 kind of thing. So it's basically an idea I'm having, and I want to do like a text or a social media messaging application that can allow people connect their ENS name to it and be able to transfer crypto in the messaging application. So I have two ideas on how to do it. I'm thinking of allowing users to create an account, create a username, and I have a particular API that I've been working around with that can allow new users to or like generate wallet addresses for each new users. I'm thinking of going through that way or going through the ENS way. I don't know how to. I've not worked with ENS before, but I think the API is quite better. I'm just not sure what way I should go. Should I go with the API or should I allow people like connect their ENS names to their profiles? Am I making sense?
Drew, you're muted.
Sorry. I think it'll be a little tricky to spin up wallets or I mean, using an ENS name is a little different, but like if you want them to also send from that wallet later, there's going to be like steps in between. It's almost like the easiest way to handle cryptos would be to take advantage of MetaMask or like a different wallet where like Bildr already has some actions built to use those. And they're JavaScript calls. It's not exactly an API, but it's pretty simple JavaScript calls. Something like that would make it much easier when it comes time for like one of your users to send a transaction. They can send it through MetaMask or sign something through MetaMask, and that'll take care of a lot of the headache and effort and setup versus trying to have them set up a wallet themselves. And when you do ENS, it would just actually query ENS and it would tell you their wallet address. So you'd run through the same things using MetaMask and taking advantage of that, but using the actual wallet address you got from ENS instead of from them typing. But one thing I would mention is Bildr has a sign in with MetaMask action, which the user signs a message with a wallet and then it creates them as a Bildr user. So that might kind of solve the problem too, unless your problem is that your users aren't going to have wallets. That's a different, harder problem, to educate them on getting wallets. But if they think they'll have wallets, using sign in with MetaMask is like pretty powerful, and their user will not have an email associated. Instead, it will have a wallet associated with it. And so everything they do in your application can be tied to their wallet. It's a more crypto first approach to users, basically.
Well, I think I can try that out. Another approach towards the payment I had was the API also had some payment actions. So depending on how to manage it, since I'll be using the same API to create wallets, like when each user is created, there'll be I'm thinking of using Ethereum wallet, like there'll be generated Ethereum address for each user. So I can also manage the payments using a different API. Like they have a suite of APIs, like payment APIs. I can think of managing the payments through that kind of way. that work also. Like when I set an action, like on an API call and post get everything on that particular payment, like you don't make transactions to each other's wallet.
I might have missed that, but I think if you're saying the API does all that, then actually that would be a fine alternative too. I mean, it would work for sure. So it's more like whatever you're comfortable setting up.
Otherwise, if that kind of if my idea is going to work, or going there and test it out and fail and see if it works.
Corey, I think you're muted, or I can't hear you.
Yeah, I was just having a little bit of a hard time hearing that last sentence. It could just be me,
I said
but
I wanted to get like a brief idea of if what I was thinking about could work generally, or if it was just something that really harder to implement.
I think it would definitely work, but I think like once you dive in, there's so many paths you'll go down to figuring all these different little questions out, and you'll probably like change how you thought you were going to approach it from the beginning, because it's basically like a pretty big problem to tackle. But I mean, it's definitely doable in Bildr, and it will work.
And Samuel, Web3 DevDoc did share a couple of things that may already handle some aspects of it. So you may want to look into, it looks like Web3 Auth and Wallet Connect 2.0. So maybe those things could be some halfway steps for you.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Yes, thank you. Okay, so let's see. I think we had a couple more. So Kyle, are you still around? Is Kyle still around? Yes. Okay, cool. Kyle, did you have a question or something you needed help with? You're muted, but you could just be preparing to enter the space. Yes, you can share your screen. Yeah, you should be able to share your screen. We can't see or hear you though. Just FYI.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, I'm testing a new mic, so if I'm too hot, just let me know. Okay, so I'm hoping this should be pretty easy. I've been banging my head on my desk for the past 3 days, trying to understand it. So first thing is, so basically I have this little app right here, just, little single page. Basically, salesperson would come in, enter some customer information, model, things like that. And then it'll come over here and they can follow up and do all their sales stuff from there. So what my issue really is I can't get these model images over to my customer list. So on this event, I hit the 7 field threshold. So I do the update record. And right here is where I'm having trouble. So when I try to, comes over to customer, this is where the model image should come on this field right here. I have it a model list where just these models, right? They have the image, and I'm doing, this is a lot like the SaaS app,
Yeah.
where I'm just, using the link there for it. I just can't get the, I can't get it in there.
Yeah, and it looks like there's a couple things that need to happen here. So like the first thing that needs to occur here is you need to put a wait between the create and the update. Since it's running in 2 separate actions, that way it does the create first, because the create needs to return an ID. So if you scroll down on this action all the way to the bottom, copy that variable at the bottom that says new record ID, because we need to use the newly created ID to tie it into this update record. So on that first argument where you have field and you're selecting the ID, that's good. But for the value, we need to change that to be from variable. And then let's paste that into that field there. because that will now target and update that record that we just created. So it's the same record. And then for the model, where is the feed or the image located on the floor?
It is on my model collection right here.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, we have to do it a little bit different. So if you go back, we need to change for the new value. So yeah, data collections is correct. And then let's select that data collection. And that's interesting. Yeah, that should give us a.
It might be the wrong data collections. You know how there's two of them?
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, it's up
That's
more
why.
towards the top. It's not
So
that
not that one.
Oh,
Go
okay.
go to the top under data.
Sorry.
All right,
That's
sorry.
data collection.
go.
That's why.
We need to clear that up. It's just like if they're too similar, those two options.
So in here, select the collection, which is the model. And then the field that we're trying to get will be wherever the image is stored. The number of records, we need to set that to 1 because we're just getting 1. And then the data format needs to go to comma separated because we just want the actual value. And then we need to add a filter so that we can find the specific entity that we're targeting here. So I'm not sure, what are they selecting on that model select? Is it just like the name or?
Yeah, they're selecting the model. So the model would like.
And
you
what's
know.
being stored? Is it storing the ID? Can you click on that select so I can see and go to the properties? So it's the name. Okay. So then we'll just filter it by the name. So let's go add a filter and then we'll select model name. And then for the value, we're going to change the type, click that little drop down arrow and go from element value. And then select that, select. And that should do it.
All right. That's it. Now, if I hit page binding, this will automatically update. Is that correct?
Yeah, if you add a listener to it, it should add it. Still didn't get that image.
No. Let's come back here to my.
Let me see what's in the value. Does it have any special care? I think we might have to do like toString1 maybe. So down there where it says add a path, click that little link right under a little bit higher where there says the value. A little bit higher, add a path. Yeah. And then in there, type the word to, all lowercase, TO, and then capital S, or sorry, TO, not the number 2, like 2.
Sorry.
And then string. And there's a bug in production right now. So we'll actually have to type the whole thing before we select it. So you'll need to hit the little trash can icon down below to delete it and then click it. Yeah, click add a path. And then we have to type it all out. Don't select it from the list.
Okay.
So toString and then open parentheses and then put a 1 in between the parentheses and then hit enter. There you go. And then now let's go refresh and let's go try it.
Nothing.
Still nothing. Why is that not getting the value? We're filtering against model name. Can you go back to the models collection? I just want to look at the data again. There's no duplicates in the name now.
Well, that's interesting. So I might have duplicates. So here's my model name right here. And
Yeah,
then
because
for my customers, I also have a model name. Would that mess with it at all?
No, because they're different collections, but I'm thinking maybe we switch it so that when you store the value of that select, instead we drive off of the ID, because the ID will always be unique and you'll never have duplicates. I don't know if that's something we can change in the setup here.
Okay, do what now?
So on the form, if you click on the model select menu,
Yep,
and then go to properties. And for the display name, we're good at model name, but for the collection field, let's change that to ID. So this will be the actual, should be the first one, yeah. That way it actually stores in the data, or when it sets the data into that select, the value will actually be the ID instead of the display name. And then now if we go back to our update action, we'll need to go update that to filter against the ID on the update. So open that filter, expand the end filter further. Yeah, that one. And then the field to filter, change that to ID. And then since we're now grabbing the ID, we no longer need the path because it's not a string that we need to escape. So click where it says to string down below. Yeah. And you can just hit backspace or hit the delete. Either one will do it. Yeah. And then now let's refresh and let's try it out.
Try it again.
No, still nothing.
I mean, you think it's because it's not cached, like it's coming in bound with no image field because it's just bound to the select, and then Bildr's trying to pull it from the cache.
Oh, it could be. Can you go back to the select? That's a good point. On the form. Click on the model select on the actual form there in the canvas.
Yep.
And then go to the data tab and go to collection list on the second sub tab.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yep.
And yeah, that's what it is. Click in there and do get all fields. There you go. Okay, that's exactly what it is. I did notice that you do have it limited to only 13 records.
That's because I'm only going to have 13 models for
Okay, got it. Okay, then that's fine. Just wanted to call that out.
Yeah, just this one manufacturer. So okay.
Cool. Okay, so let's try. I bet that's all it was. Because what it is you're only setting the name, so it's never actually setting the rest of the data. So it doesn't have it.
Bam. Oh my God.
There it is. Nice.
I would have never ever figured this out. Okay.
Yeah, and you can change it because notice, because we changed the value to ID, notice it stored the ID instead of the name.
Yep.
So if you want to put that back, we can, because it should work now, because that wasn't the problem.
Okay.
So if you go back to the properties tab, change that last one back to model name. And then go into the action again where we create it. It's on the add button, yeah. And then we'll need to go to the update, expand the filter. And then change that to model name. And then that should do it. You don't need the path because there's no special characters in the name.
Okay, that is amazing.
Yeah.
I'm just going to test it one more time. And then I just have one really quick. I'm sure it'll be hopefully easier. Okay. So let me just do that.
Anything to save you a trip from the hospital for banging your head on the desk.
Kicking people out of my office left and right. Like I am going insane right now. Okay. So
Yeah,
that works great. That's beautiful. All right. So now, first I select the model and then they'll select a trim. Now I have this data. Oh my gosh, what did I do? Okay, so this trim should be pulling from these models.
Yeah, we just need to add a filter to that data collection. And then select the field where you have the trim in here.
So that's my trim level.
And then the value will be from an element, which will be that select. So if you click that little drop down arrow, yeah, change that to from element value, the first one all the way at the top.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, one more.
Oh, element. I'm sorry.
And then now in here, we're going to select that trim select.
So I could have swore I did this today, but we'll see. No, see, it's still pulling all of them.
That's not going to work on the fly, right, Dorian? I think you need to do it in an action instead of in the
Oh, because it does it on binding.
It'd be the same thing, but yeah, with an action instead, and then just
Yeah.
fire that action.
And I did that in action for the the fuel type, and that works fine.
Yeah.
Because I can have these like what's fuel and what's not. That's interesting. I'll change that.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, that gets me at least out of the mental institute for now. So I appreciate it very much.
Thanks, Kyle. So guys, I know that we're close to end, but it does look like Brennan has a question. Do we have time? Brennan, are you still on the call? Yes, you are. He's got a question about how to create a sortable grid list with drag and drop and then storing the sorted order. So I know that's probably like a whole thing unto itself, but maybe we could point him in the right direction.
Yeah. So I guess we'll just go with how to store the sorted order, because that's like the top level. So basically what you do is on the main grid in the properties tab, I think it's like the last argument, there's an argument called sort field. And basically in there, you're going to select the field in that data collection that you're wanting to save the sort into. And then there's one more piece to that. Once you have that set, then on the events tab for that grid, on the change event, you need to set it to autosave, because that's what will trigger it to save that sort. Anytime the sort changes on the grid, it'll trigger a save to the database on all the records where the sort changed. For the drag and drop, that one, I don't, it's complicated.
I'm gonna chat you a link. I'm gonna chat you a tutorial for how to do drag and drop.
Yeah, it's hard to explain, but essentially
It's
you kind of have like hidden or invisible divs on the row of the grid. So not on the main grid, but on the actual row page. And you're essentially just grabbing and setting events based on like drag start, drag in, drag drop, or drag end. And you're just doing different things depending on what you're trying to do. But yeah, I think finding a tutorial, walking through that probably be the easiest. It's hard to explain that one.
yeah, I just chatted him. Drew actually had a drag and drop tutorial
nice.
for dragging and dropping images into a mood board.
Yeah.
So I think that'd probably be a great place to start. Okay. I think we are good to wrap today. If there's anything we didn't get to, please chat us in the Discord. Dorian and Drew, thank you as always for being rock stars. And to everyone else, have a wonderful weekend. We do this every week, so we'll see you next week. Bye, everyone. Thank you
Bye-bye.
so much.